How's it going, everybody? This is Radishhead and welcome back to another episode of Upland Analysis. Well, it is an exciting day, not just because it is my grand return back to YouTube, but more importantly, the London and Birmingham city releases are dropping tomorrow. I'm getting these collection predictions out just in time for the release. I wanted to get it done earlier, but I like to have the neighbourhood lines up before I do my predictions, because there's nothing worse than saying that a certain street is one to look out for and then it turns out that it's not going to be in the release at all. So this video is going to be primarily focused on the London collections. I don't have too much to say about Birmingham, purely because it's going to be a new player city, so 70% of those properties are going to be FSA, which means that the vast majority of people watching this video won't be able to mint any properties there anyway. So I don't really have too much to say about Birmingham, except it's a lovely city, and anybody who is minting there tomorrow, best of luck. P.S. It's pronounced Birmingham, not Birmingham. That goes to you as well, X1 the Gamer. I also just wanted to quickly say, of course, the Fuller Park neighborhood project is in full swing in Chicago. All of the factories and showrooms have been built, and the UPEX has been paid out to those who contributed. Look out on the channel very soon after the London release for the next big announcement concerning that. Okay, so I'm going to start off from a neighbourhood perspective. Obviously, I think there's about 25 neighbourhoods dropping in this release, but they are basically combined into two boroughs. So you've got what Upland is calling the Westminster borough over here, where I'm circling my mouse, and then we've got the City of London borough over here. And it just so happens that this is only about 20,000 properties, so I do suspect that it could be a case of just mint whatever you can, because it's pretty clear that this is going to sell out in probably about half an hour to an hour, I imagine. And it looks like quite a big area when you're zoomed up like this, but for the Americans out there, I just wanted to show that this is only a tiny fraction of how big London actually is. So don't go all in on here thinking that there's nothing else, you know, coming for London, because if I zoom out, I will be able to show you roughly how big London is. Here we go. So you can see, yeah. So if you go all the way up to the north here, this bit up here in Harrow, this is still London. All the way west out here is London, and then going like south of the river, like Lewisham, Woolwich, practically all the way out east here to Ilford. This is all London. So when you zoom out this far, you can see that the bit that's releasing tomorrow is really just a small part of it. Having said that, having lived in the area, being British, I can tell you that this area that is releasing tomorrow contains the vast majority of the most kind of iconic streets and areas of the city. Certainly the bits that you would come visit as a tourist would mostly be located within these two boroughs. So small fraction of the city, but a very large proportion of what I imagine will end up being the collection areas. I guess the only other point I wanted to mention are the handful of bits that are not releasing tomorrow, which I think could be collections later. Some of the key standouts that we are not going to get. We're not going to get Oxford Street, we're not going to get Regent Street, we're not going to get Baker Street, and we are not going to get Bond Street. So those are some iconic London streets that stuck out to me as not being within the areas releasing tomorrow. But aside from that, there is a lot of juicy stuff here, so I am going to share with you some of those right now. Let's keep it really easy at the start. Let's talk about neighbourhoods. So as far as neighbourhoods, I would say within the Westminster Borough, Hyde Park definitely jumps out to me as probably the most interesting one within that area. It's got some really unique history. It's got some very unique architecture. It is just a place that has a lot of interest to it. Like if you're in the area, you hear Hyde Park. I'm looking at all of these names around here, and that one instantly stands out to me as by far the most iconic one. So make of that what you will within the Westminster area. And then I don't want to speculate too much on the individual, Upland calls them neighbourhoods, but in England these would be called wards of the City of London, because each of these is so tiny, and I think there could be a realistic opportunity for Upland to basically take this entire borough and make it a limited collection or a standard collection. But if you really had to push me for like individual wards that kind of strike me as particularly interesting, I would say Bishopsgate up here is really famous as like a big part of the financial industry, and you've got Broad Street and Cornhill just to the south of that. This kind of triangle up here, I think as far as the individual wards go, those are pretty famous. But yeah, I would just say this entire area of all these teeny tiny wards, if you get anything here, you're going to be on a winner. But I do want to call out that all of this area is going to be amazingly expensive. I've got no idea how high Upland is going to price them, but do not be surprised to see 1,000, maybe even 2,000 UPIX per upsquared. So yeah, just if you have less than 100,000 UPIX in your account, I wouldn't even consider floating around over here. I'd probably go over to the Westminster bit. To be honest, if I only had 100,000 UPIX, I'd probably go mint the Birmingham release. So yeah, that's just a quick warning for you. Okay, so I think the biggest potential for speculation in this release is going to be in streets. And let me start by zooming in over here, kind of just between the Westminster and the City of London boroughs. And if you zoom in over here, there's actually a few interesting streets. So you've got Fleet Street. This street was very famous as the original centre of the British newspaper and journalism industry. The whole industry is still sometimes known as Fleet Street for that reason, and I think it's got a pretty good chance of being a collection for that reason. And if you actually just continue on a little bit west of Fleet Street, you run straight into the Strand. This is another very famous, very historic street. It contains a number of national landmarks like Somerset House, the Savoy Hotel. So I would definitely say that Strand is something to keep an eye on. If I head east a little bit, going back into the City of London, if you zoom in on this ward here, Cordwainer, right on the north side here, there's a very famous street called Cheapside. Don't be fooled, it is not cheap, but it was once the main market street in the City of London, and it still has market heritage, but this time around there's a lot more luxury retailers here. So Cheapside is absolutely a fantastic place to set up shop for your meta ventures, but I think it could also be a good collection speculation. And if you actually continue east along here through the Walbrook ward, here you find Threadneedle Street. It's a short street, could be worth a gamble. If you continue going east along Threadneedle Street, you bump into Bishopsgate, which is another very famous, very iconic street. It was once one of the main thoroughfares of the City of London, and it contains lots of quite famous sites, lots of unique architecture over here. Could be a limited collection. And if I zoom out of the City of London borough and head over into St James's, I think St James's, there's a lot of good potential over here, and the properties might be a little bit cheaper than in the City of London. If I zoom in at the very north of the St. James's area, there it is. Okay, so if I zoom out a little bit, hopefully it's not too laggy. Yeah, this bit up here in St. James, this street, Piccadilly, very famous tourist spot. You've got Piccadilly Circus over here, which is kind of one of the most famous landmarks in modern day London. It's like the one with all of the advertising boards on the computer screens. So this is really like the centre of a big part of tourist London. You've got Regent Street here, you've got Oxford Street just around the corner. So this whole area around here will be very popular. And then while we're in St. James's, there's a couple more in the area. So if we zoom in here, Pall Mall. It's famous for being on the UK Monopoly board, of course, but it's also just a very iconic shopping area, and this runs straight into Trafalgar Square, of course, as well. I'm not sure how many properties, if any, there actually will be along here, because it's primarily just the monument, but it is worth noting that this is, you know, a really popular touristy iconic bit of London. You've got Pall Mall, you've got Strand, which I already talked about. You know, it all kind of accumulates here within this part of the St. James's area. And then as I zoom out, I can instantly see, you know, going south of Trafalgar Square and heading towards Big Ben, there it is. This is Downing Street. If there's any street which you know, I could say got a fantastic shot of being a ultra rare, I think Downing Street could be it. I mean, it is the famous residence of the Prime Minister. Not many properties in here at all, so if you manage to get anything here, that would be quite a claim to fame. I have a feeling that 10 Downing Street itself might be locked off as a like a special property that Upland will auction off later, but you could get 11 Downing Street just next door, which is historically where the Chancellor of the Exchequer would live. And you've got 12 Downing Street as well, which is a marked property, although I'm not exactly sure who would live there, but somebody very important, no doubt. And of course, you've got, you know, just around this area, look, you've got Parliament Square, you've got Big Ben, you've got so many national landmarks, you've got the House of Commons. Really anything in this area, you're within walking distance of, you know, London, like famous London. So you can't really go wrong there either. And I think that really covers a lot of the main neighbourhoods and streets from my perspective. Yeah, certainly the St. James's area and anything within the City of London borough, I'd say those are super duper like high priority targets. This sort of bit out west, like Knightsbridge, this bit is like super duper luxurious housing, quite famously so. So you know, if you want to sort of show off and have your mansion out here, that's a good place to be. Not so sure if it will be a collection, but you know, that's not everything, I suppose. So yeah, I hope you found that useful. I hope you all have the best of luck in the London release tomorrow. I can't wait to share how I did. But until next time, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.